Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh, coming up in the next 30 minutes. Reserve Bank of India keeps repo rate unchanged at 6.5% for 10th consecutive time, says economy displaying stability and strength. Nation's growth story remains intact. Floridians flee looming catastrophe as Hurricane Milton approaches. Category 5 storm due to hit Gulf Coast late Wednesday or early Thursday. North Korea to completely cut off all road and railway links to South Korea from today. Military says it will fortify the areas on its side of the border. Japanese Prime Minister Ishiba said to dissolve parliament ahead of October 27th snap elections, relies on divided, fragmented opposition to regain power. India to play Bangladesh in the second T20 match in New Delhi. Women's team to take on Sri Lanka in the ICC Women's T20 World Cup in Dubai. The Reserve Bank of India on Wednesday kept the repo rate unchanged at 6.5% for the 10th time in a row. RBI Governor Shaktikant Das said while announcing the monetary policy statement, decision was taken with a 5-1 majority. The Monetary Policy Committee decided to change the stance of the monetary policy to neutral from withdrawal of accommodation.
After assessing the evolving macroeconomic and financial conditions and the outlook, the MPC decided by a majority of 5 out of 6 members to keep the policy repo rate unchanged at 6.5%. Consequently, the standing deposit facility, that is the SDF rate, remains at 6.25%, and the marginal standing facility, that is the MSF rate and the bank rate, they stand at 6.75%.
Let's now go across live to Mumbai for RBI Governor's press conference.
Welcome to this post-monetary policy press conference in this new setting. Friends, we have with us Governor Reserve Bank of India, Shri Shaktikanta Das, Deputy Governors, Dr. M.D. Patra, Shri M. Rajeshwar Rao, Shri T. Ravi Shankar and Shri Swaminathan J. We also have with us Executive Director Shri Dr. Rajiv Ranjan and other colleagues from Reserve Bank. To begin with, I would request Governor Sir to make his opening remarks. After that, we will have the question and answer session. Sir, please.
Thank you, Puneet, and good morning and welcome to all of you. As I already said, season's greetings to each one of you. These are main highlights in my monetary policy statement. I'm not going to say anything new drawn from the MPC. So I would like to make about totally 9 points, and I'll be quick. First, India's growth story remains intact. Second, inflation is on a declining path, although we still have a distance to cover. There are significant risks to the inflation outlook, and these risks cannot be underestimated. We need to remain vigilant. Number 3, the balance between inflation and growth is well poised. Number 4, the external sector remains stable and reflects the strength of the Indian economy. 5, forex reserves are scaling new peaks. 6, the financial sector remains sound and resilient. 7, the Reserve Bank will continue to be nimble and flexible in liquidity management operations. 8, today's monetary policy action gives greater flexibility and optionality to the MPC to act in sync with the evolving conditions and the outlook. I'd like to repeat this. Today's monetary policy action gives greater flexibility and optionality to the MPC to act in sync with the evolving conditions and the outlook. 9. We are acutely aware that there is no room for complacency, especially amidst the rapidly evolving global conditions which encompass geopolitics, financial markets, and commodity prices. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Before we begin, I will request our media friends present here to please wait for your turn. You may see my colleagues on both sides of the aisle with mics in their hand. So as I call out your name, they will hand over the mic to you. In the interest of time, humble request, please restrict to one question per person. And if time permits, we may consider some other questions. Sir, as mentioned, sir, there are 24 participants from media today. And with your kind permission, I'll call out the names. So I'll start with Ms. Lata Venkatesh from CNBC.
Lata Venkatesh from CNBC. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you, Governor. Even if you cut, do you think, as and when you cut, do you think the fact that deposit rates are, acutely being fought for and are high, do you think it will get percolated at all, and therefore, or transmitted at all? And therefore, what is your assessment of when deposit rates may peak off? Have they peaked off?
You see, the interest rates or the policy repo rate, the decision of the MPC will be determined by the growth inflation dynamics. And we have been saying that repeatedly. Depending on the overall inflation outlook and the growth outlook, as mandated under the monetary policy, the interest rates the MPC will decide with regard to the policy repo rate. Now, the lending rates, the deposit rates, and other market rates naturally will move in tandem or in response to the interest, to the policy repo rate decided by the MPC. MPC, of course, takes into account multiple factors. Financial stability aspects and other aspects are taken into account. Price is given to inflation outlook and growth. MPC takes into account several other factors, but including deposit rates or credit rates, they respond to the policy.
That was RBI Governor interacting with the media after the announcement of the repo rate. Reserve Bank of India has kept the repo rate unchanged at 6.5%. This is the 10th time in a row the decision has been taken. The RBI Governor also said that the economy is displaying strength on the inflation. He said that inflation is on the declining path, but the risks cannot be ignored, and the decision has been taken in view of these circumstances. The RBI also says nation's growth story to remain intact. We'll be getting more updates from the RBI Governor's press conference, his interaction with the media. He also spoke about balance between inflation and growth is well poised in India. Forex reserves have hit new peaks. Financial system is resilient. Some of the updates that came in from the RBI Governor's press conference. Policy decision, he said, gives more flexibility to the MPC, to the Monetary Policy Committee, to stay in sync with the evolving outlook. And we'll turn to more updates coming in from the press conference in just a bit. Moving on, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be travelling to Laos PDR tomorrow on the invitation of Laotian Prime Minister. Prime Minister Modi will be on a two-day visit to attend the 21st ASEAN-India Summit and the 19th East Asia Summit. The ASEAN-India Summit will review progress of India-ASEAN relations through India's comprehensive strategic partnership and chart the future direction of cooperation. The East Asia Summit is a forum that contributes to the building of an environment of strategic trust in the region. It is a platform for East Asian countries to exchange views on issues of regional importance. As India marks a decade of the Act East policy, relations with ASEAN are a central pillar of the Act East policy and Indo-Pacific vision. Leaders of the South Asian countries arrive in Vientiane for the 44th ASEAN summit that began on Wednesday. Southeast Asian leaders were welcomed by Prime Minister of Laos upon their arrival. The summit will see top ASEAN leaders discuss issues like Myanmar civil war, the South China Sea that dominates the region. Opening remarks by Laos Prime Minister assured ways to tackle the ongoing conflicts and other challenges faced by the group of nations.
ASEAN
will continue to expand the path towards the ASEAN 2025 document that will support the build-up of the ASEAN Community Vision 2045 in order to build a stronger and resilient community for a stronger economy and increase connectivity with each other. It would also make us strong and more capable to deal with various future challenges amid the fluctuating and complex geopolitical and geo-economic climate.
Today, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will lay the foundation stone of various development projects in Maharashtra worth over 7,600 crore rupees through video conferencing. Prime Minister will lay the foundation stone of the upgradation of Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar International Airport, Nagpur. It will serve as a catalyst for growth across multiple sectors, including manufacturing, aviation, tourism, logistics and healthcare, benefiting Nagpur city and the wider Vidarbha region. PM Modi will also lay the foundation stone of the new integrated terminal building at Shirdi Airport. It will provide world-class facilities and amenities for the religious tourists coming to Shirdi. Besides, other projects are from the field of health, use of technology in education and skill development. The Navratri festival is celebrated with great devotion across India, with rituals and prayers honoring the goddess in her various forms. On the 7th day of Shardiya Navratri, the occasional morning aarti was performed at the Jhandewalan temple. This was in the national capital on Wednesday early morning. And we now return to the RBI Governor's press conference in Mumbai.
So you should just assess the stance by itself, independently. So we will, as Governor mentioned, we will like to see off the near-term hump in inflation, which all our projections suggest is going to happen. We want to see it off carefully before even considering the next move. So our whole attention is now focused on this near-term hump.
Thank you, sirs. Next, we'll have Ms. Swati Bhatt from Reuters.
Thank you so much, sir. So I just wanted to understand, India is now included in all the three emerging markets.
Just keep it a little closer.
Okay, is this better?
Yeah.
Governor, I just wanted to understand, so now India has been included in the FTSE Russell Index as well. We already were included in the JP Morgan and Bloomberg Index. To what level are we comfortable in terms of these foreigners owning government bonds? Is there a comfort level that the RBI has? If you can just briefly explain that. Thank you.
I think you can reply.
So the current holding of government bonds by foreigners is just about 3%. So even the question of what is the sustainable level doesn't rise. Even under the various routes, it's very, very low. For instance, under the FAR is just about 5.5%. So we will wait for these numbers to get to a decent level before we take a view.
Thank you, sirs. Next, we'll have Mr. Ashish Akashe from PTI.
So why have you retained the growth target at 7.2%? And what you are estimating that the second half there would be an acceleration in growth. Why are you expecting that to happen?
So I think I have explained it in my statement. I mean, the drivers of growth, the critical drivers of growth, that is consumption and investment, they continue to be quite stable. Private consumption, we saw in the first quarter data, was far better. And investment also, the numbers are looking good, and private investment is showing signs of pickup. In fact, going by the investment intentions of the corporates, given their deleveraged balance sheets, the government capex, going by all signs, I think private capex as well as the government capital expenditure is also doing well, and the services, services sector is also continuing to do well. And further, agriculture is going to provide a big boost this time, not only on the supply side, but also to consumption demand in the rural sector. The monsoon southwest has been very good. Expectations of a good, the expectations of a good Rabi output are also fairly strong thanks to high reservoir levels and the moisture conditions of the soil. So rural demand is expected to maintain its momentum. Urban demand remains steady and will get support from buoyant services sector. So if you put all these things together, I think it gives us, the number that we get is 7.2%. And as I have already articulated, the first quarter numbers should not be, which came at 6.7%. It was primarily due to lower expenditure by both central and state governments. Maybe because of it coincided with the election season. In fact, but we now get a sense that both state and central government expenditures will meet their budget figures, will meet their budget estimates. An important aspect also which has been perhaps missed out, but which was highlighted in the State of Economy Bulletin article of which was released in September, in the last month's Bulletin article. Now, if you sort of the first quarter, the subsidy payout was very high by the state governments in particular, and also
This RBI governor interacting with the media after announcing the new rates, which remain steady. Still to come on DD India Live. US President Joe Biden expected to speak to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu today on Iran strikes. Haitians hold a funeral for victims of October 4th gang massacre. Items worn or used by some of Hollywood's biggest names are up for grabs. We tell you when and where. Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. US state of Florida is bracing for another deadly storm, now categorized at level 5. Hurricane Milton is explosively developing into a major storm, already pounding Mexico beaches. Milton is all set to make landfall in Florida on Wednesday. Here's more.
Mandatory evacuation sirens go off in Reddington Shores as Hurricane Milton barrels towards the US state of Florida. Hurricane Milton will make a landfall at Florida's battered Gulf Coast as an enormous Category 5 storm. It has already triggered massive traffic jams due to the exodus. First time in over a century, Tampa Bay will be hit by a hurricane, and that too has been dubbed as an extremely dangerous storm. Officials have ordered over 1 million people to flee before it makes landfall late Wednesday or early Thursday. While the World Meteorological Organization has forecast fluctuating strength categories, the dangers prevail.
Milton, according to the latest forecasts from the US National Hurricane Center, will likely make landfall in Florida Wednesday night, local time. The maximum sustained winds at the moment are 250 kilometers an hour, and the National Hurricane Center is saying that, fluctuations in the strength are likely, but whatever, regardless, Milton, and I quote, is forecast to remain an extremely dangerous hurricane through landfall in Florida.
US President Joe Biden has urged those who have been ordered to leave to evacuate now.
Most importantly, I've urged everyone currently located in Hurricane Milton's path to listen to local officials and follow safety instructions. You all have been reporting on the highways, the shoulders being opened, everybody's heading out. And if you're under evacuation orders, you should evacuate now. You should have already evacuated. It's a matter of life and death, and that's not hyperbole. It's a matter of life and death.
Hurricane Milton threatens a stretch of Florida's densely populated west coast that is still reeling from the devastating Hurricane Helene less than 2 weeks ago. Storefronts in Florida's Front Myers are all boarded up and protected with barriers as many residents seek shelter away from their homes before the landfall. Antara Sinha for DD India.
And as the state of Florida in the United States braces for the landfall of Milton, a study by World Weather Attribution has said that Hurricane Helene's rain and strong winds were made more intense by climate change.
Hurricane Helene's torrential rain and powerful winds were made about 10% more intense due to climate change, according to a study published Wednesday by the World Weather Attribution Group. Although a 10% increase might seem relatively small, that small change in the hazard really leads to a big change in impacts and damage. Study focused on three aspects of Hurricane Helene: precipitation, winds, and the water temperature of the Gulf of Mexico. All aspects of Helene were amplified by climate change to different degrees. The study found precipitation had increased by 10% because of global warming. Scientists determined Helene's winds were 11% stronger as a result of climate change. Lastly, the researchers examined the water temperature in the Gulf of Mexico, finding it was around 2 degrees Celsius above normal. Warmer oceans release more water vapor, providing more energy for storms as they form. This study also found that fossil fuels have made hurricanes like Helene 2.5 times more likely to occur. Helene made landfall in northwestern Florida on September 26 as a Category 4 hurricane with winds up to 225 kilometers per hour. The experts have now warned that if humans continue to burn fossil fuels, the United States will face even more destructive hurricanes. Bureau Report, DD, India.
Meanwhile, US President Joe Biden is expected to hold a phone call on Wednesday with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Reportedly, the two leaders are expected to discuss plans to strike Iran. US State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller has indicated that Hezbollah is on defensive mode and calls for a ceasefire. During his briefing, Miller said Israel's offensive against Hezbollah in Lebanon has prompted a renewed bid by some leading Lebanese politicians to fill a 2-year-long presidential vacuum in an effort to revive the paralyzed state as it grapples with the escalating conflict.
So for a year, you had the world calling for this ceasefire. You had Hezbollah refusing to agree to one. And now that Hezbollah is on the back foot and is getting battered, suddenly they've changed their tune and want a ceasefire. I think it's not surprising given the situation they find themselves in.
Shifting focus to the Korean peninsula, where North Korean army has said it will completely cut off roads and railways connected to South Korea starting Wednesday. With the announcement, the military says it will fortify the areas on its side of the border. The announcement heralds a further escalation in activity close to demarcation line separating the two Koreas, which had been rare in recent years until this year. However, Pyongyang says this was in response to war exercises that have been held in South Korea, as well as frequent visits by US strategic nuclear assets in the region. Seoul says that North had already been installing landmines and barriers, creating wasteland along the heavily militarized border for months this year. Let's turn focus to Japan, where Prime Minister Ishiba is set to dissolve the parliament on Wednesday ahead of the October 27th snap elections. Prime Minister's Liberal Democratic Party has governed Japan almost uninterrupted for decades, almost certain to be re-elected. Ishiba replaced Fumio Kishida, whose government had suffered from record low approval ratings, partly due to slush fund scandals that stoked distrust in the LDP and voter discontent over rising prices. Over the weekend, Ishiba announced that LDP will not endorse some disgraced party members implicated in the political funding scandal in the upcoming elections. Moving on, Haitians held a funeral for the victims of the gang massacre on Tuesday. On October 4th, gang members brandishing automatic rifles stormed through a town in western part of the country, killing at least 70, forcing over 6,000 to flee. Armed gangs control most of the capital, Port-au-Prince, and are expanding to nearby regions. The crisis has fueled hunger and made hundreds and thousands of people homeless. Promised international support continues to lag. Nearby nations have deported migrants back to the country. Let's now turn to sports. Confident Team India is all set to take on Bangladesh in the second T20 International in New Delhi this time. Having already won the first T20 by 7 wickets, all-rounder performance by Team India is sending shockwaves to Bangladesh. Meanwhile, India will face Sri Lanka in their third match of Group A in Women's T20 World Cup 2024 on Wednesday in Dubai. The Harmanpreet Kaur-led side had a shaky start to their campaign with a 58-run loss to New Zealand in the opening game. However, Indian women's team got their tournament back on track with a 6-wicket win over arch-rivals Pakistan. And from Yoda's cane to the Clint Eastwood's Duster Court in The Good, the Bad and the Ugly, hundreds of items will go under the hammer next month in a sale of movie and television memorabilia. Entertainment auctioneer Post Store is selling more than 1,800 items at this annual live auction, which this year runs from November 14th to 17th. So what catches your attention? That's all in this edition of DD India Live. Let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan this QR code on your screens to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Live. Namaskar.